Here's my process and how I created this sunset surfboard. Cut your board in the shape of a surfboard and prep it with the colors that you are wishing to use. For this project, I chose SQUID-CRAFT. SQUID-CRAFT is a 2-component 1-to-1 mixture. It's a high build, high viscosity, crystal clear crafting resin. And for my oceans, I really like it because when I warm it up, it creates a really nice wave, but it doesn't run off the board and waste a lot of resin. So I really enjoy this particular product for all my ocean art. Choose the colors that you would like to pick for your own ocean and your sunset colors. Here's an example of the colors that I was using. I taped and prepped my board so that the sunset colors do not run over onto my ocean side. Here I am mixing my yellow, my orange, and my red. And now it's time to layer my colors as if it was a sunset. So starting with the yellow first, then I slowly blend in the orange and the red and mix it together. Then don't forget to use your heat gun, as you always want to warm up your resin, pop the bubbles, and allow the resin to move naturally so that the colors blend. SQUID-CRAFT is a nice resin to work with because it is a bit thicker, so it goes on nicely, and then once warmed up with your heat gun, it will move. But at the same time, it will not run off your board, so you don't have a lot of wastage. Make sure to be careful with your heat gun as you're warming and moving the resin, because you don't want to get too close to the resin, heat it up, and burn it. So you have to move quickly and move your heat gun around often, and don't settle in one spot too long. I repeated my sunset colors and ended up with 3 layers by the time I was done this board. I had already completed the beach by mixing the clear resin with my sand and then following up with my seashells and letting it cure overnight. Now it's time to mix my blues. So I'm mixing a combination of acrylic paint and mica powders to get the colors that I want. I use a combination of Castin craft and white alcohol ink to create those waves and get that lacing effect that we all love on our ocean boards. Now it's time to pour. This is my favorite part. So on this portion, I'm putting a clear layer of resin onto the beach so that the resin will flow nicely from the beach into my blues and then my white waves. Just like in a real ocean, I start with my light blue, then I work up towards my dark blue, blending them slowly together, and then I'll use my heat gun to further blend so that it looks natural. Because I had extra resin, I'm using some of it on my smaller surfboard. So from small to large, you can make these surfboards as beautiful or any size that you wish to have. Once you have your ocean colors blended, it's time to get your heat gun out and slowly warm it up and move it along so that it's ready for your waves. Be careful with your heat gun so that you don't sit on the resin too long in one spot and heat it up too much, because you can burn your resin. So here I'm just going to move around slowly, warm it up, pop the bubbles, and get it ready for my white. Once I feel that my resin is warmed up enough, I'm going to start to prepare for my waves. So I'm going to put a clear layer approximately where I want my waves to go, and then I'm going to follow with the white pigment. This will help the waves to move and create those cells. Now I'm going to slowly move my heat gun across that white line and slowly move and heat it up, making sure that I don't stay in one spot too long so that I don't burn my resin and that I get my waves to where I want them without having it get too hot. This is my favorite part of creating oceans, is the waves, because as the resin is heated up, and that white pigment moves across our colors, every wave becomes its own creation. You never know what you're going to end up with, and that's what makes these oceans very unique and one of a kind, because every ocean and every wave has its own look. SQUID-CRAFT really works well with my oceans because, as you can see on my table, I don't have a lot of runoff. So it's thick enough to stay on the board, but warms up enough so that I can move my resin and create those waves that I really enjoy making. Once my first layer is completed, I let my board sit overnight so that the resin can cure, because the next day I'm going to start layer number 2. I always like to put a layer of waves right along the beach to make it look as if the waves are flowing onto the sand. For the second layer, you'll see that I start further up the board. This actually gives your ocean an almost 3D look because the waves are going to look like they're rolling down towards the beach because they're going to have a separate layer with a separate depth. Now I'm going to use my heat gun to warm up this resin and blend those two colors together so they look natural. As you can see, we see the first layer underneath our colors, which is what we want because that's part of how the waves end up looking three-dimensional, because it looks like there's two layers, one underneath and one on top. Now that the resin is warmed up, it's time to start pouring my layers for the waves. So I'm going to start once again with that clear layer, and then I'm going to follow with the white pigment. That clear layer helps that white pigment move across the board. Use your heat gun to warm up that white pigment, and as you move across and it warms up, you'll start to see that lacing and that white pigment move to create your waves. Being careful not to heat up your resin too much, but continue to use your heat gun and add the white pigment until you're satisfied with the way your waves look and that you have the depth that you're looking for. Continue to make as many waves and layers as you wish. Once the resin has cured, I removed all the tape, sanded off the edges, and now they are completed.